main issue with a hot hatch like this is they do attract a lot of attention. I mean, people always want to race you at the lights, and see what I mean? It's just typical guy in a McLaren. Who does he think he is? Hey guys, let me introduce you to the 2016 Ford Focus RS. I'm going to start this review by actually talking about the negative points with this car. A stunning hot hatch, mega hatch, whatever you want to call it, priced at £31,000. It produces 350 horsepower, four-wheel drive, etc, etc. It's going to have some downsides and going to have some negative points. This compares very closely to, say, the M140 or the Golf R. It's a good £10,000 cheaper than the Audi RS3 or the Mercedes A45. Now, Ford have always made some, amazing hot hatches. The previous gen Focus, I actually had an ST and I absolutely loved it. Back then had a 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbo Volvo unit. It sounded a bit like a Quattro from the 80s. It was cheap and cheerful. You sat in it, you were undoubtedly sitting in a Focus. The only downsides that car had, off memory, was the seating position that was a bit awkward and you sat quite high. Fast forward sort of nearly 10 years and we're in the brand new 2016 Focus RS. And unfortunately, the first negative point to this car is the seating position. I'm sitting way too high in this car. I like to sit quite close to the wheel and I can't get comfortable. Firstly, it's just, I feel like I'm sitting too close to the wheel, but then when I put... Now at this point I hadn't tried a Focus RS with the standard seats. The car that I had the optional RECARO buckets in there that were about £1,100 option. Really nice seats, but just mounted way too high. Thankfully, after I'd given this car back, I had the opportunity to try one with the standard seats in them, and they are so much better in every respect. They are more comfortable, they offer 90% of the support that the full buckets do, and most importantly, they sit a good 5 to 6 inches lower than these seats, and that in turn improves the driving position. It improves everything. It improves the handling of the car because you're sitting much lower. You feel like you're getting thrown around a lot less. In fact, even the ride feels better as a result of sitting much lower and on a slightly more cushioned seat. And the standard ones can be heated as well with the winter pads. When you open the door and you climb inside for the first time, you realise that the interior is really low rent. There's no other word for it, and that sort of thing, it's not top of my priority list in a fantastic car. People go on about my M2 having a cheap interior or that it's not particularly special. To me, all that matters is your touch points, the steering wheel, your pedals, the pedals in the right position. I got in here and I was kind of, I was expecting it to be like a Ford Focus, which it is. The steering wheel's really not that nice. It's too big. I haven't driven a normal Focus, but I can't imagine it being any different to a normal Focus wheel because this doesn't look particularly special to me. It's got an RS badge on the bottom of it. It's got so many buttons all over it that get in the way when you're really pushing on. You hit some of the buttons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 buttons on the front of the steering wheel. The accelerator and the brake are too far apart from each other. I find it very hard to heel and toe in this car. The ride quality in this car, it's very stiff all of the time. I'd say it's stiffer than my M2. which is great, and it works so well when you're pushing on. When you're not pushing on and you just want it to be a normal hatchback, because let's face it, that's what's so attractive and so good about hot hatches. They're great value for money, but also they can be your everyday car. You know, they can transport your medium-sized family around, your dogs, your bikes, whatever you want, and in comfort. But this car, the ride is a bit hard and a bit bumpy for sort of everyday stuff. It also suffers quite badly from torque steer. Now, torque steer is very common on powerful front-wheel drive cars and powerful four-wheel drive cars, and I say inverted commas because most four-wheel drive cars are sending power to the front wheels the majority of the time. And the same goes for this car, except this car can throw a lot of it to the rear as well, which makes it such a brilliant car. On the brakes, it's fantastic. It has very powerful, massive Brembo 4-pots in the front of this thing, and it stops very well. But on the uneven surface roads, the bad roads, hard on brakes, it was kind of like if you imagine torque steering in reverse. So it was moving a lot under braking. The last one, I guess, off the top of my head, is the image of this car, especially in this nitrous blue. I really like the colour. I think it's a really cool sort of out there colour, but I just think the Focus RS is already, it's a shouty car. It's a look at me. It's like the Honda Civic Type R. Those two are sort of in a league of their own in terms of the hot hatches. You know, they kind of shout about what they are, whereas the M140s and even like the RS3s, they're kind of a lot more subtle, and I'd say an A45 kind of sits somewhere in between them. To me, as a 37-year-old, it's way too much, and if I was to own this car, I would get one in like the stealth. In fact, the standard stealth grey is probably my favourite colour. I get a lot of people come up and talk to me about it. Some people can't stand it, others absolutely love it. Now let's talk about its good points. It's just over £30,000. It offers a hell of a lot of performance for that kind of money. Now, we can't compare this to the RS3 and the A45. They're both 40 grand and both four-wheel drive. We can compare this to the M140, the Golf R, etc. Now, what are you getting for your £31,000? You're getting almost 350 brake horsepower. You're getting an incredible four-wheel drive system that makes this car feel like a rear-wheel drive system in many ways. You're getting a car that, when pushing it, it's honestly every bit as good as my M2. It is 100% balanced. I've never driven a front or a four-wheel drive car that has so much balance. They usually always understeer. This car does not understeer. You point it into a corner and the nose will go wherever you want it to go. The steering on it is literally, it's very close to perfection. If you weren't sitting so high, it would feel even better, because up here you swing around a bit more just due to the sort of pendulum effect. But it's mind-blowing the grip this thing's got. But also, once you've got it in a corner, you can feel the grip levels. You know when you're on the limit. You can feel the car sort of neutralizing, and then you hit the accelerator and you can feel the back end wanting to come around a little bit, not in a dangerous or unnerving way. It pokes its head out, you know, and that's brilliant. That's, for a four-wheel drive car, it is fantastic. In fact, we're just going to go around a roundabout here now, so we can load it up. You just turn it in, load it up, turns in. It just turns in so well. Load it up, then load it up too much, and you get it going sideways. Again, look. It's just brilliant. But I just needed to sort of demonstrate how good this car is on the limit, and whenever you want it to be, it's always there. That harsh ride that I complained about when you want it to be comfortable comes into its own when you start pushing this car. When you really push it, the Focus RS becomes better and better and better. So the harder you push it, the better the car becomes. So it's one of those cars, a bit like the M2, that it comes alive above sort of 7-8 tenths. It's so sure-footed, it's so solid, but it inspires you with confidence when you go into corners, and it's just, yeah, it is honestly, it's genuinely a brilliant car when you're pushing it, when you're on the limit. So for all the downsides and the negatives, the minute you take it out for a proper drive, you forget about all of that. On the limit, it blows away, and I'll hand on heart, it blows away the M140s, 240s. I've driven the Golf R very briefly. Again, on the Golf R is an amazing all-rounder, and I really want to do a review on it one day. It really is an incredible car. But the Golf R, a bit like the M140, is a car that does everything very well. This does the sort of faster, the high performance, the balancing act, the balancing trick so much better than say the Golf R does. It's just so much better on the limit. It just gives you, it just tells you what it's doing. And that's when you realise someone like Ken Block has had a lot to do with the development of this car. There's so many good hot hatches out there. There's such a variety. But if we're talking about £30,000 hot hatches, this is definitely one of the best. If I was in a closed sort of road stage, in the wet or in the dry, and I was given a choice of any of the sort of hot hatches around the £30,000 mark, this would be the one I'd be in, because I feel safe in it. I feel like I can go fast but safe. It's so predictable. And that brings me on to its wet weather handling. This car is just amazing in the wet. Again, it's still got that incredible turn-in, incredible grip, and incredible balance when you get to the limit. Other things are, yeah, the engine makes a great sound. I think I've read somewhere that they pipe that sound through the cabin, because it sounds to me very much like my old ST, bit of a 5-cylinder sound there, so like the old RS as well. So have they fakely put that through the cabin? I don't know, but again, it doesn't offend me if they have. I think it sounds pretty good and pretty organic. You get some nice pops. Let's see if we can get some pops coming out of here. This one has only got 4 cylinders, but it makes good use of the 4 cylinders. It's got plenty of torque down low. There is a bit of turbo lag. In fact, there's a lot sort of below 1600 RPM, but then it comes in very strong. It's very thirsty, mind you. It's okay when you're doing sort of long motorway runs, but yesterday I was out with a load of friends who were mostly in supercars, so I was, you know, chasing them. I was pushing this car pretty hard, but a lot of it was sort of motorway as well. I managed 130 miles out of a tank. So when you're pushing this 2.3 Ecotech, I think they call it, I don't know where the ecos come from, because 130 miles out of a whole tank is not particularly eco. But saying that, when you're not pushing it, it does seem to produce reasonable MPG, but I can't imagine you would ever get more than about 30 out of this car. A 5-door manual M140 is about £1,000 more than this list price. After you factor in the discounts that you're gonna get on the 1 Series, it's actually a cheaper car than this to buy. So I would probably still buy the M140 over this, but there'll be times when I wish I was in this car. There'll be days when I'm off driving the car on a Sunday morning with my mates in other cars, and I would crave being in this RS, because it's a better car at doing that. It's not a better car at being an everyday car. It's not as comfortable. It's not as nice a place to sit. It really isn't. If I could get the finance figures to match, it would be a very difficult decision. And I'm not just saying that because I've had this Ford for a week. But I am just saying that because I've had this Ford for a week, because I do really like it, and I've grown to like it more and more. Usually it would sit outside my place for 1 or 2 or 3 of the days of the week, you know. But this time, every day I've had the car out. I've done nearly 1,000 miles in 7 days in this car. Oh, it's just brilliant. And the launch control. Launch control in this, it's fun, but it takes forever to go through the menus to select it. So if you ever think you're going to use the launch control in this to race the guy at the lights next to you, think again, because by the time you actually activate launch control, he will be in another postcode. Okay, how to activate launch control in a Ford Focus RS. So, firstly, we go to the menu controls on the steering wheel here, which controls the menu in the middle there. And we press left, which brings us over onto the main menu. We go down, all the way down to settings. Press OK. Settings brings up this sub menu, which has got driver assist. We click OK again on that. And that brings us through to launch control. All we need now is to press OK, make sure it's in gear, you put your foot hard down on the accelerator, and then just release the clutch. Cool guys, thanks a lot for watching as always. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up. Leave any comments below. I will see you at the next one. Cheers.